Hi everyone, so Tier here, and today we're going to be talking about Overwatch, but mainly a quick guide on using Roadhog in solo competitive. Now, before I get into details about Roadhog himself, I want to first talk about the basic behaviors that you must have whenever you're playing solo competitive. Now, I know the community is a bit toxic, to be honest. There are a lot of players that are quite toxic to play with, that they take the game too seriously, that if they don't get those things in their way, if they don't get their own way of doing things, they will lose the game. So that happens a lot. So I hope that, this is a reminder if you think you are one of those. You can't really always have things that you want to have. And you can't always be a crappy person who trash talks other people in the game because they're not doing well. Because you have to think of it, because sometimes you will also not do well yourself. And you will do crappy plays as well. Everybody ends up with those kind of situations. So you have to understand that not all people will always be 100% efficient when they're playing their game, even if they're using their mains. First behavior I want to point out is that you have to be flexible or selecting your team composition. Especially, let's say, for example, they get a hero that you really want to use, or it's your real main hero which you are very good at, then politely ask them if they will let you have the hero. Sometimes people will be okay with that, and it doesn't hurt to ask. Now, they don't adjust, then that's fine. Then you adjust then, because you were the last to pick anyways. So adjust to the hero that needs to be picked in order to have a good composition. Don't be the toxic person. You don't need to be that. Be the better person, as I mentioned. Now, be polite. Don't trash talk anyone because it makes the game worse. It makes the team worse. If a person is not doing well, you don't trash talk them. You tell them, no, you tell them that they're not doing well. Maybe can you change to this specific hero, or maybe this hero? Maybe it'll be easier to do. No, let's say for example, there's a McCree user who's not doing well. You can just ask that person, maybe can you go 76, because 76 is DPS hero. It's easier to use 76 compared to McCree. Maybe you can consider that. Now, if it doesn't listen, then try your best to adjust to what he's not capable of doing. Talk it out within the group. We need to adjust. He doesn't listen. Okay, let's do something that we can do to make the team competition even better. Instead of being toxic to that person, because it will make it worse in the sense that he might end up throwing the game and you will lose the competitive match. And you don't want that. Okay, so you always have to think the end in mind, meaning that you want to win the competitive match. And trash talking someone is not going to help, right? So don't be part of the cancer of the Overwatch community, please. And this happens at any rank, be it 1000 rank, be it 4000 rank, it happens everywhere. All right, so now let's get on to the main meat of the video, which is learning how to use Rootog in competitive play. Now, I'm only ranked up 2500, and I'm currently stuck within 2000 to 2500 rank right now. So it's kind of a big of a grind for me. But playing as my Roadhog main, I've gotten as far as 2500. I felt that maybe this can help out those people who are trying to get into platinum range within this season or maybe in the next season. So hopefully this guide helps you out. So first is we have to understand what are the capabilities of Roadhog's weaponry. So first look, we have the primary shot. So you have to understand the primary shot has 25 pellets. It's the same as secondary shot. The only difference between these two things is the range. Right? So maximum damage without headshots is 225. So this guarantees that you can kill any characters that are 200 health below. That's 100% guarantee if you body shot them. Now, the tricky thing here is that Roadhog's weapon spread is quite big, so the proximity range of his shots, you have to try to practice and get used to it. So primary shot for me in my experience, 5 meter is the most effective range to hit majority of the pellets against those close enemies. Then for the secondary shot, it's more or less around 10 to 15-meter range. Now make sure that when you're doing secondary shots, make sure you aim it in a range that your secondary shot actually explodes out. You don't want those secondary shots that are just balls. Balls that does 50 damage. You don't want that. You want it to spread out because it guarantees auto kill if an enemy gets hit in that specific range. Now for the chain hook, it does 30 damage upon hit. Now you have to remember that even if you do have a successful hook and the enemy manages to get out of your line of sight, then the hook will be cancelled. You have to take note of that. Then of course the cooldown has been increased by 6 to 8 seconds, which in my opinion is a bit frustrating because 8 seconds is a bit too long to keep doing chain hooks. It kind of made Roadhog's potential lowered a bit. Now for the maximum range of the chain hook, it's 20 meters, almost as close as your secondary shot. So just practice it a bit more in order to get that gauge on if you can still manage to land hooks. Bottom line, you still need to practice a lot to get these shots right. Now, the take a breather heals 300 damage and the cooldown is 8 seconds. Now, the good thing about the breather is that it's the main boost for your ultimate. It gives around, I think, 15% boost for your charge in the ultimate if you manage to heal the maximum amount of 300 damage. So try your best to maximize that in order to get your charge for ultimate as early as possible. Now, Whole Hog has a potential of 5,000 damage. That's a lot of damage, so try your best to maximize that if you can. Of course, it's difficult to do, but you have to position yourself always in a way that you can corner your enemies and you can maximize the damage. Since the knockback will throw them all over the place if it's in an open area, but if you manage to corner them, then it can potentially go to triple, quadruple kills if you manage to do that. So there are a lot of potential with Roadhog in a sense that his DPS is exceptional. It's just that you need to hit them correctly in order for them to be a bit effective. All right. So now let's talk about tips. So these are the main tips that I would normally apply when I'm using Roadhog. So remember that Roadhog is not a main tank. Main tanks are like D.Va and Reinhardt because they can block off a lot of damage. Roadhog has no way to block off damage. So he's not essentially a main tank. I would classify him as an off-tank DPS hero because he deals a lot of DPS damage. He's tanky because he has 600 health and he can take a lot of damage before going down. So you have to play him the way you play DPS, meaning that you have to flank enemies when you're engaging them. You don't just go head on straight on. You can probably do that if you have a Reinhardt in front of you, but if not, you gotta flank. Otherwise, trying to fight enemies straight on, let's say you're pushing a payload and you're trying to fight against an enemy with a Reinhardt in their team, it's gonna be hell to deal with. So you gotta find ways, you gotta flank and try to find a way to take out some of their support, some of their DPS, which you can hook one-shot them. Now, the only time you don't flank is if you're doing defensive objectives, like let's say you're on defense in King's Row or Numbani. It would be wise to be always near the objective point. So try your best not to flank too much in order to protect your point. Now you have to practice your hook shots a lot in order to guarantee kills. So as I've said before, good hook shots can guarantee kills, and that means that one less enemy to deal with for your team, and it makes it easier for the entire group. Now, the good thing about hook shots, of course, as most Roadhog players would know, is that maximize your environmental kills with hooks. There are a lot of places for you to do that. You have to take note that successful hook shots, you can direct them in a place where they can fall off. It doesn't mean that they're directly in front of you, then you hook them, then they fall off. You can actually just stand beside a place where they can fall off, then just hook them and face on that direction, then they will fall off. So you have to take that note of that. That's a probably good tip that if some Roadhog players do not do that, that's a good way of doing environmental kills. And you can also use your ultimate to do environmental kills, but it's not that easy to do because of course the you can't control the knockback. It goes all over the place. So if you do get lucky, yes, you can probably do some environmental kills with those. But majority of the environmental kills that you do would be coming from. Now, next tip is that you maximize close proximity shots. As I mentioned before, your primary shots can kill off 200 health heroes. So if you do manage to get into a skirmish and many of those 200 health heroes are in front of your face, just shoot them with your primary shot. You don't need to hook them. Just try your best to aim at their body and shoot them. It's a guarantee kill. Now, next is that you are fighting against. Now, later on, I'll mention which types of characters that I really find very difficult to deal with if I'm fighting against with them. So, let's say, for example, the best example is Genji's deflects. These deflects, if you manage to shoot Genji with a perfect shot and he deflects it, he can potentially one-shot kill you. It has happened to me before, which is quite surprising. It was a close proximity shot, and he just deflected it, and I died instantly. I think most of the shot went to my head, and I just dropped dead. So you gotta be careful with those types of things. So normally, if I engage with Genjis, I would just wait for him to pass his deflect before I start shooting and hooking him up. Now, of course, know when to back out and heal. So sometimes you're too busy doing your engagement, not realizing that you're already dying and you can't engage out because you're already stuck in the middle. So you have to be aware on how much damage your enemy can probably potentially take on you before you dive into the actual skirmish. Normally, what I would do is I would stay at the borderline before I step into the actual objective and start hooking enemies and shooting them out. It would be wise to wait some of your friends to come in as well. But whenever I do engagement, I always go at the back because most of the time the tanks are already at the front. I'm just going to flank them and try to take out those soft enemies at the back, the supports, mercies, or shows or whatnot. So make sure to take note of these things and apply them whenever you're playing your Roadhog. Now, I'm gonna list down some of the characters that I feel are my most favorite takeout. So I call them Roadhog's favorite menu. So in terms of tanks, my favorite is Winston. He's such an easy kill. I don't really have any problems dealing with him. Um, for 76 and McCree, of course, they can potentially kill me sometimes if they're really good at their aiming. But if they're so easy to hook, I don't really have problems dealing with them, except if they're far away from my hook range. That can be a bit of a problem. But if I do manage to get in within the hook range, then chances are I'll win the battle. As for supports, my favorite is Mercy. Lucio can be a bit, dodgy whenever he runs around, but for some reason I can more or less catch or predict where he moves. So it's not that difficult to deal with. The only problem I have with Lucio is that I've fought with very good Lucios where they know how to bounce you off the map. Those Lucios can be a bit a nuisance to deal with. So, but not all Lucios are as good as that. So for me, it's still a good pick to kill, in my opinion. So these five characters are my most favorite things to kill whenever I do engagement. Now, I have also made a list of characters that are a very big nuisance to deal with. Number one would be a very good Roadhog. So if I manage to fight off with a better Roadhog than I am, then I'm gonna have a hell of a time. And I have had a lot of those experiences before, and it can be very frustrating to deal with. But otherwise, it's more or less a 50-50 coin flip. No, the trick for Roadhog versus Roadhog is that you gotta do a primary shot first, damage him a bit before you hook him, then you damage him again. That's the only time you can actually kill Roadhog. And the person who hooks last normally would win. against those duel. That's normally how it goes. So make sure that whenever you're doing your shots with Roadhog versus Roadhog, make sure that the first primary shot hits him before you do the hook. Otherwise, you lose, guaranteed 100%. Now, for the other heroes, for the tanks that I would normally hate to deal with would be Diva and Zarya. Now, Diva, I hate dealing with Diva because of her deflect effect, so she can just take off all of my DPS altogether, which is very annoying. So I try my best to take her out if I can, but if not, I try to avoid her altogether because she is very much of a nuisance to deal with. Now, for Zarya, the only thing I hate about Zarya is her character model. It's very difficult for me to hit her properly with the primary shot or secondary shot. I do get lucky sometimes, but with the way her character model is built, it's proven to be a bit difficult for me to deal with. So sometimes it takes me an entire clip just to kill a Zarya. But that's my experience, so maybe some players would see this differently. And I would put in Anna in that same category as Zarya because Anna's model is so small that even if I hook shot her, I don't kill her even if she's just 200 health. Because the pellets would just miss her character model, so she would still alive. It will really need me to take two shots to kill her or maybe a melee shot to kill her. She's a bit annoying to deal with. Now, for Genji, as I've mentioned earlier, his deflect can be very troublesome for me, especially if I do whole hogs. If a Genji deflects that, then sometimes I just whole hog myself and I fall off the cliff, or sometimes I just kill myself, which is a bit painful to deal with. So I'm very careful when I'm dealing with Genji. For Reaper and Mei, the reason why they're a nuisance is that they are 250 health, so you can't just hook and kill them in one shot. It's a lucky shot if you do that, but normally you won't. So you need to do a melee shot, or sometimes the melee shot is not even enough because the maximum damage you can do with your primary shot is 225. So you have to move your shot a bit higher to hit their head to do some headshots in your pellets and pray that they die instantly after you do that. But 90% of my encounters with them, I couldn't do the single shot kill. I would normally do the same thing I would do with my Roadhog against Roadhog, which is hit them first with a primary shot or a secondary shot before I hook them and shoot them. That guarantees to kill them. Because for Reaper, if I don't kill Reaper on the hook shot, I will guarantee die against a Reaper because of the DPS that can shoot out at close proximity range. For Mei, it's not much of the same problem because Mei can't kill me quickly enough, but she can be a bit of a nuisance because she can freeze me on and off, and her teammates can take me out. But other than that, their HP is just annoying. 250 is not something Roadhog can just take out. And that's it for my guide, guys. Hopefully that helps you out, and hope you do better and maybe reach platinum for those who hasn't reached platinum in competitive play. Now, if you do enjoy the content, please do leave a like and subscribe. And if you didn't, then there's a dislike button there that you can press. And again, if you have anything that you want me to look into or you have anything to suggest, feel free to leave a comment under this video or any of the videos that I have in my channel, and I'll try to look into it. And again, thanks guys for watching my video. Hope to see you again next time. Tear out.